Hi, and welcome to Hiss and Tell, a cat behavior and more podcast, hosted by me, Christina Wilson, animal behaviorist. Today's episode is all about enriching the lives of indoor cats, helping them stay active, engaged, and mentally stimulated right in the comfort of their home. I'll be speaking with Dr. Lynn Barr, feline veterinarian and founder of Dezi Roo, a brand that is devoted to enriching the lives of indoor cats. So get ready to discover some creative ways to add more joy to your cat's lives. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hiss and Tell. With me today is Dr. Lynn Barr, feline veterinarian turned toy maker and owner of Dezi Roo. Welcome, Dr. Barr.
Hi, everyone. Meow.
So, full disclosure, I have a lot of Dezi Roo products in the house. I think the favorite one that we have is the paper tunnel. Those are amazing for cats. So I'm a little bit biased here in this discussion today. I'm just, saying that right off the top.
Well, thank you.
Of course. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, your education, who you are as a cat person?
Certainly. I grew up with dogs. I did not grow up with cats. I also grew up not knowing I was going to be a veterinarian. Unlike most vets, everybody says, they knew their whole life. It was actually a cat that got me into veterinary medicine. And he adopted me. I adopted him in 1980 and quickly just sort of started to speak to me in ways that animals actually have the ability to do. They change lives. I didn't know that until this cat came into my life. And fast forward, I went to vet school, became a veterinarian. I was interested from the very beginning in doing only feline medicine. Again, I didn't know I wanted to be a vet, but because of this cat, I sort of had to. Fast forward, 25 years later, I have two cats that are my first indoor only cats, Dezi and Roo, and they changed my life. Having indoor cats is a whole new breed of cat. And I found myself in practice doing a whole lot more workups holistically as far as the household and the lifestyle of the cat and so on, and started to realize how indoor cats are, how different they are. They're very high maintenance. They're not low maintenance creatures. They're enclosed in four walls. The need for enrichment, the need for fresh air, and so many things changed my life again. And so I started to go to the pet product shows looking for good products that I could recommend to my clients and had a hard time finding many. Particularly 10 years ago, the array of products for cats was almost nil. Other than, little toy mice, little plastic things, there was nothing there. I'm also an anti-declaw vet. I feel very strongly against declawing. I've never done a declaw in my career. And so scratch posts are a particular interest of mine. Again, I would go searching and not really finding the products that I needed in order to recommend to my customers, my clients. And so I started tinkering on my own and making them for my cats and realized that I kind of know what cats want and need.
Right.
And I think like a cat, which allows me to really tap into their instincts and to just be able to evaluate the things that they need. The human-animal bond to me is the most remarkable bond strength. It is just incredible and miraculous. So anything that I can do to strengthen that bond is my purpose in life. I quickly realized that in the exam room, I did a really wonderful job one-on-one, but that I could have a bigger voice with my company. And now with Dezi Roo, I reach thousands of owners and, pet parents, and I can just help them on a much larger scale than I could in the exam room.
Sure.
So I retired 5 years ago, and now I run Dezi Roo, and we make phenomenal products for cats.
You do. It's true. So do you want to talk a little bit about those challenges that indoor cats face in terms of stimulation and enrichment that, you make the products for? I think we could talk all day about the problems, come, I'll just say from my perspective that so many of the cases that I get as a feline behaviorist come from lack of stimulation, lack of intellectual stimulation, and enrichment. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, not only are the behavioral problems caused by lack of enrichment in the indoor environment, but so do many of our medical problems.
Yes.
So, when I first came out into practice, all my patients were outside. And then they transitioned kind of indoor outdoor until very recently, where every cat is told it needs to be kept indoors. The medical conditions I used to deal with were ads from cat bites, parasites, fleas, ticks, worms, hit by cars, things like that. They've now transitioned into the itises, where it's stomatitis and cystitis and inflammatory bowel disease, and the itises, which Tony Buffington from Ohio State recognized the treatment of choice is environmental enrichment.
Right.
It's medical issues that are caused by stress and by the indoor environment. I would go one step further and say that I think that we haven't even tapped into many of the downfalls or the conditions of living indoors caused our cats medically and emotionally. For me, it's as simple as little things like lack of fresh air, lack of direct sunlight, the inability to consume grass. Those to me are basic necessities that every cat should have. And so the first thing I teach people who have indoor cats is open the windows.
Yeah.
It's that easy. It doesn't have to cost you a cent. Just open the windows at least for a couple of minutes every day. When you think about the indoor cat, it's such an unnatural environment for them. We're in fall here. It's starting to get a little chilly out. And what do we do in the wintertime? We put on heat. In the summertime, we put on air conditioning. And our cats are enclosed in these four walls. And, they have the normal blowing of the coat in the wintertime and, or in the summertime and building it up in the wintertime. And, we switch that around. Totally.
Yeah.
However, fortunately, as we're learning about them and we're recognizing them and we're becoming aware of them, we can now do some things about it.
Yes, absolutely. I'll just say cat grass kits are so easy to get. You can often even just buy wheatgrass at your local health food store, so it's already grown for you. I know I've had a lot of clients kind of push back on grass because they're like, oh, but then they throw up, and it's sort of like, well, that's part of the process. Is it helps ease hairballs, and it's good for them to have cat grass. So I always like to kind of push that. And I know we're going to talk about it a little farther in the discussion, but I think a catio is always a great thing to do if you can. That was the first thing we built when we moved into this house. And then also, yeah, so they have this beautiful giant catio that they can go in and out of all day, and they will hang out there when it's freezing because they just want to be outside. And so they get to see all the wildlife, but be safe. And then a few of them also really like going on harnessed walks. So that's another great choice if you live in an environment where that is safe and you have a cat who is willing to do harness training. So those are just my little suggestions for people as to kind of...
I agree. Totally. I don't know if you're aware, but I wrote a book a few years ago, co-authored with Laura Moss, and it's about the indoor cat. And in that book, we offer hundreds and hundreds of enrichment tips, but also several chapters on how to bring the outdoors in and how to let your cat go safely outside and, how to open windows. And there's a window box that I built for my cats that costs $35 and a half hour to make, that you can put in every window and at least give cats the chance to have a little bit of direct sunlight. And really the need for that fresh air is so important.
It is. And I think also the opportunity, if it's possible, this is harder for people who live high up in apartment buildings, but the opportunity to kind of stalk and do the prey sequence, I think is missing from so many animals' lives. And so I really love to encourage the use of suction cup bird feeders right on windows so that, native birds are safe. We're not encouraging anyone to let their cats out and massacre wildlife. But it's so wonderful. We just throw seeds out in the morning, and then our cats, they'll just sit in sun puddles all day if they're not on the catio, watching birds, chipmunks, squirrels, and then at night raccoons. Although yesterday we did have a bear, which was not great, but the bear
Oh,
didn't. Yeah,
wow.
the bear didn't eat anything. He just like wandered around and was like, "Oh, bye." But they love it. They sit there and they watch, and so they get to do the stalking part of the hunting sequence, and then they can use little puzzle feeders to kind of do the remainder, to do the like pouncing, killing, and eating. So you get to do that full
Wonderful.
hunting sequence. So I like to encourage that for clients also who are dealing with issues coming from lack of enrichment or intellectual stimulation. So can you talk a little bit about the problems that can come from lack of enrichment? Not necessarily the physical problems, because we touched about that a little bit, but did you ever see in your practice people who were relinquishing or euthanizing their pets because they were having these issues? Or is that not something that you dealt with?
Absolutely dealt with day in and day out. Cats in four walls, even as big as our houses are or as wonderful as our houses are, it's still confinement.
Yeah.
And it affects them dramatically. All we have to do is go back a few years to when COVID hit and we were all within our homes. We went stir crazy very quickly. We have so many options as humans. We had our TVs and we had books and everything, and we still had a very hard time coping with that. So I don't think cats are that different. They're enclosed in four walls. They never get to go outside. They don't get to investigate anything. They have zero choices in their home. And that
Right.
is really the number one issue when you start working on behavior problems is we choose everything for them. We choose what they eat, where they eat, when they eat, what they eat out of. Like, they have zero choice in most of what they do.
Right.
So cats will react one of two ways. They will either act out of frustration, out of boredom, pent up energy. So if it's a multi-cat household, you might have a lot of fights and bullying and things like that. They can be urinating out of box. They can be just, pulling the garbage out, like anything that they can do to kind of release that energy and get that energy out and entertain themselves. Or the opposite becomes true, and that is they become depressed and they sleep all the time. Now, we perpetuate that by saying, oh, cats sleep all the time, they sleep 20 hours a day. And no, that's not normal. Cats that are outside really are walking the neighborhood. Even when they're resting, they're just cat napping. They're still aware. Our cats should not be sleeping day and night. And so that to me is also a behavioral problem.
Right.
And they're depressed. They're unenriched. And they get to the point where that's all they know. And so they don't play and they don't do much. They interact with us. They want food and they'll lay by us. And for a lot of people, that's all they really want from their cat.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to kind of not necessarily the history of the cat and go all into that, but into kind of the daily life of a cat who lives outside, or even I don't want to say feral because that's such a hot button word, but
No.
A wild cat, or a cat making a living on its own out in nature is maybe the best way to put it. And how they tend to spend their day, because I know it's a lot of wandering, it's a lot of hunting attempts, and maybe some successes here and there, but it's quite a busy day. So I don't know if you want to
Yes.
speak to that.
So feral cats are in a group of their own. And these are
Right.
cats that we generally don't see as humans. They're out there, they're surviving. It's a rough life. It's not a great life. They don't live that long because they're born with parasites and they get into fights and they have to deal with the elements and they're preyed upon, and life is scary for them because they are preyed upon and yet they have to go out and prey. But They're a separate group of cats, and they don't interact with humans, and we really don't have much interaction with them. Then we have your indoor-outdoor cats, whether they are strays or they're owned by people and they go indoor and outdoor. And in most environments, I actually think they live a great life. You know, your barn cats and all of my cats, up until my recent ones, Dezi and Roo, they always went in and out, in and out. And they had a lot of choices. They had a lot of enrichment. They would spend their day basking in the sun, you know, checking out the yard, going after prey, whether it's a bug or a bird or a lizard. Like, they're active in that way, eating grass. And so my cats are indoors, but one of my neighbor's cat does go out, and we catch him on the camera. He has a regular route that he takes. I mean,
Of course, yeah.
you know, it's like us walking around the block. And so that's what cats do. They go out and they kind of do their little jaunt, and they're normal, checking everything out and who's home and who isn't, and where's their food and what's new today. And they're awake most of the time. Cat napping in between to you know, rest and to build up a little bit of energy. But normally cats that go in and out, when they come back into the house, yeah, they want to eat. Yes, they want to curl up next to you. They want to lie on the bed. And those cats generally don't need as much enrichment or entertainment because, like little kids, are out playing all day. Our indoor cats, you know, they walk around. What's new? What is different? There's not much. It's the same rooms, and it's the same walls, and it's the same furniture, and it's the same people, and it's the same smells. So we have to do a lot more. In fact, I every day say to myself, what can I do different today? I want every day something new for my cat.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard. You know, you have to think of things. It's easy things like bringing in your mail and dropping it on the floor and letting them smell it and lay on it. Every cat likes to lay on a piece of paper. It is, you know, again, something like opening the window. Just last night, I have a wardrobe, and I opened it up to get my pajamas out, and I was sitting with my cat on the bed, and she's looking at it, and the next thing I know, she jumped over there and she's in it. And she's investigating. That's new. That's enrichment. So it's not that hard for us to do. We just have to think about it and work on it and make it a routine. And then once we do that, it gets a whole lot easier.
It's true. And I think as humans, because it's not our primary sense, we discount scent enrichment so much, right? We're so human centric and we're just like vision, vision, vision. And you know, that is certainly not a cat's primary sense. And I think scent enrichment is so important. And I know you have a lot of scent enrichment stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the scent enrichment toys that you have.
Well, I love to talk about scent enrichment.
Yeah.
You know, most people don't realize that when kittens are born, the first 2 weeks of their life, they do not see and they do not hear. They navigate their entire life by scent. It is the most important part of their life. And you're so right. We don't think about it. We don't talk about it. And it's lost on most pet parents. But cats, smell is everything to them. It's how they learn about each other. It's how they know us. It is how they learn their environment. It is how cats communicate because their scent is in their urine, it's in their paws when they scratch. So I like all kinds of scent enrichment. And that means every time you eat, letting your cat smell your food. They're not going to eat 99% of it. They're not like dogs. They're going to smell it. They may try it, but most don't even do that. But give them that smell. Again, opening up the windows, what our cats are smelling is our cleaning supplies, what we're washing our clothes in, what we're cooking, if we're burning candles. They are not smelling the outside. They're not smelling their neighborhood. They're not smelling the season. So opening the windows is scent enrichment. I like to use all of the silvervine and catnip and valerian and honeysuckle. I do things like bonita flakes. I bring soil in from outside. I bring branches in from outside. Like, Is so very, very important.
It is. And I think it's also important to stress to listeners to be mindful of your pet scent environment in the home and to not clean off the areas or all at once, certainly to clean off the areas where they bunt, where they like rub their
Right.
faces around the home because they're marking their territories in the home and saying this is safe. They're giving themselves little bursts of pheromones and to just be mindful of that and to really not use scented candles. Those
Right.
aren't great for cats. To try to not use scent plugins, anything scented really, and like scented chemicals, anything bleach, because bleach will kill their scent receptors in their nose. And imagine if somebody cleaned with something and made you blind. That would be really scary. So I think it's very similar maybe for them. What is your process for kind of coming up with new enrichment products? Like I don't want to say how do you think of them, but how do you decide what concepts are going to benefit indoor cats?
So I don't really have a particular process. Again, I'm a new entrepreneur, toy
Right.
maker, all of 5 years. But everything that I make has to have a purpose. I'm not out to make toys for cats.
Right.
That's not my intent. It is really to tap into their natural instincts. And so you mentioned the tunnel, the hide and sneak. That to me was the most therapeutic product I've ever made. It is to give cats a place to hide, which is essential.
Yes.
Number one, every cat needs places to hide. And so the hide and sneak, it's made out of paper. Every cat goes into paper. The front and back has cardboard. So like you said, they rub and they scent it. They go, this is mine. It has an entry and an exit so that they can get in and out. They're never trapped. It's warm like a box. It gives cats what I consider a home of their own. It was essentially made for newly adopted cats because my clients would bring their cat in that they had adopted and would start talking about the environment and the cat. And the first thing that new cats do is run under the bed.
Yep.
And they hide. And most new owners will be okay with that for a day or two, but that's it. They want to bond with this kitty, and they want the kitty out from under the bed. So they do everything they can to block off that bed, and that would break my heart. So that's how the hide and sneak came about. Cats will preferentially go in that as opposed to under the bed. Owners can feed in there. They can see the cat in there. It feels like it's safe. And that was my way of strengthening that bond and helping that cat out at the same time.
Right.
So that's how the hide and sneak was developed. One of my cats, Roo, is a fetcher. And so the wiggly balls came because of Roo, because she fetches. My newest product, the Pop and Purr lollipops and candies, tap into that scent enrichment. It's the only refillable scent enrichment product that I've seen where you can put anything in it. And again, I do. I put bonita flakes in there. I take grass and I take flowers and mash them up and put them in there, and silver vine and anything and everything I can think of. So I just, I know that cats need to hunt and that they like to chase things and that they like to hide and they need scent enrichment. So I look at those and try to develop what, if I were a cat, I would want.
Get it?
So I feel like I just have some natural ability to really know what cats want. It comes from something beyond me. It's not really me. It's inspired.
I totally get that feeling. I get it.
Right.
So, do you ever get specific feedback from cat owners that has kind of helped you shape what you're up to?
Yes. I typically won't sell a product until I've had like lots of really good feedback. Again,
Right.
I'm not in the business of just making toys.
Yeah.
And everything that I produce has to really be a shining star of a product. So we do have a no-kill cat shelter here.
Oh.
And I take toys there to try out. Then what I do is I will typically, like right now, I'm working on some new wand toy attachments and getting close to narrowing them down to like 3 or 4. I will pick our top 15 customers who have bought wand attachments and send it to them and ask them to evaluate them for me.
Right.
Then I have my circle of veterinarian friends, and I have them look at it to make sure it's good and safe and there's not a safety issue or, some reason why I shouldn't produce it. And then again, with as many cat people as I know, I have them test things out. And until I get really, really good feedback from everyone kind of consistently on something, then I will put it out.
That makes sense. Are there any common mistakes that pet owners make when they're choosing toys for their cats that you could speak to?
Totally. They buy it because they think it's cute.
Makes sense.
Not because the cats like it.
Right.
An example of that is I was recently, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we exhibited at Cat Fanciers Association, their international show, which was in Cleveland, huge show. And the assistant that I brought with me has been in the feline world forever. She has been shelter manager. She has 4 cats. She's an awesome owner, and she purchased a few toys. I still purchase a toy at least every 2 weeks for my cats. Like I'm always looking for toys. And she purchased a really, really cute little wool broccoli. And she kept saying, "This is so cute. I just like this so much. It's so cute." And I knew her cats would not like it because it's just a little stuffed
thing. Yeah.
wool broccoli. And so I actually spoke to her yesterday and I said, of all the toys that you bought, what did your cats like? What didn't they like? And so on. And come to find out, not a single cat wanted anything to do with the broccoli. She bought one wool spiral that they played with for one day and then they've never gone back to it. Her cat is addicted to our magic carpet. So that is one of her cat's absolute favorite toy. But a good toy a cat should, in my opinion, destroy. They should play with it enough that it is tattered in pieces or destroyed. That means they had fun. Anything that is still intact 2 or 3 years later means they really
years later. Nothing lasts in our house for even 1 year, but again, we have so many cats. I also want to point out for listeners that because as we've touched on, cats are bored easily, that you should not have all the toys out at the same time because then cats kind of can't see anything. So you should only have 2 or 3 toys out and then rotate them every few days. Otherwise, your cats will sort of just not really perceive anything. Or it's just like, it's overwhelming. And also like having a toy basket for them to go through doesn't really work in the same way that it does for a dog. So you kind of have to take them and present them. Just these are common mistakes that I see people making.
With you. It's similar to us going into our closet and despite the fact that we have, it's full of clothes, we can't find a single thing to wear.
Yep, that's why I wear this every day or some iteration of this. Even though I have a closet of great things, I'm just like, I don't know, I'll just put the same. Who cares?
Right. Or opening up the refrigerator and thinking you're going to find something new and not shutting it and going back later and opening it up again. And that's how it is with the toys.
Yeah. I will say that this week's hottest toy is an acorn top that I brought in. So I love doing that, is just bringing in random stuff that is non-toxic. Also because we have 2 kittens in the house, so it's very careful because, they are exploratory and they want to try everything. Right. So the bottom part of an acorn is very toxic for people listening. It has tannins in it. You should never let cats play with the bottom part of an acorn, especially if they're babies, but the top part is fine. And so I just brought in some of those because I thought they were cute. And I was like, oh, look, they're little hats. I'm going to put them on cats' heads and take a dumb picture. And then the cats went crazy for them because they roll around in an interesting way. Those were the hottest toys I've seen in a minute. They loved them. And because we're out in the forest, we have a plethora, just an unending supply of acorn tops. So,
Wonderful.
yeah, I can't recommend enough. Go out into your yard, find stuff that's non toxic to cats, make sure that it's non toxic, bring it in and see what do they think about it.
Correct. I mean, that is my philosophy. Bring the outdoors in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always very interesting to see what they're interested in and what they're not. Like, have you noticed a shift in kind of customer awareness or demand for these more enriching, stimulating toys that you make?
I believe so.
Yeah.
One of the real benefits of bringing cats inside and having indoor cats is it really does strengthen that bond because people are seeing their cats day in and day out, and the bond is closer. And I find that many pet parents are now searching for enrichment toys, searching for good toys. And with the internet and with so many different ways to find products, that they're reaching out and looking, as opposed to years before this. You would have Walmart, you would, even at the very beginnings of Petco and PetSmart, that was about all you had.
Right.
And there's so much more, and some of the best toys are by independent, crafty people. So I think that particularly the younger generation, they're treating their pets like children. And just like they shop for their children and they look for toys and they want to bring stuff home, they're doing the same for their cats. So I do think that the public is becoming more and more aware.
Yeah, I agree. I think the cat market especially was really underserved for so long. And it is finally kind of getting the attention that it has always deserved. So
I agree. It gives me a lot of hope and makes me very, very happy that the awareness is increasing every single day.
yes. So I want to get into a few listener questions. Some of these we've kind of touched on, but one of them is, my cat is lazy. Even when playing, he lays down. How can I get him to move more?
Well, my first reaction when people tell me that their cats don't play is that they don't know how to play with their cat.
Yep.
I have yet to meet a cat that I can't get to play. There's a method and a way of playing. And the number one problem is, wand toys. So people, the first thing they do is they hold it in front of the cat's face and they jiggle it. And I tell everybody, a mouse or a bird would never fly into a cat's face. They fly away. They run away. And so...
Or they stop and start.
Right. And cats don't go after anything that's running already. It's when they stop that they lock in, that they can judge the distance, that they know what it's going to take or what direction that critter's going to go. So learning how to play with your cat is sort of essential to getting them to play. A lazy cat like that, what I would do is sort of says to me, I'm picturing this cat. I may not be spot on, but probably a little bit overweight, more food motivated than anything else. So this is the cat that I would be walking around the house while I was dropping treats, just to get the cat to walk around with me. I would then probably have a wand toy or like a long string or, like a cat catcher, a charmer, and walk around with that instead of the treats, or mix that in between the treats so that the cat's following. And yes, it's chasing after this little toy as opposed to treats. I would, if I was sitting on the couch, I'd be throwing treats to get the cat to run to get it. That's how I would start out. I don't know how to be more general about it.
No, that's fine.
All cats want to play, and the ones that are lazy are either lazy because they're physically unable to play.
Right.
If it's an older cat, it may have arthritis. Or the cat has just become so accustomed to not playing to an unenriched environment, that it doesn't play for that.
Right. Yeah. All right. Why does, this is an interesting one. Why does my cat like to scream in my shower periodically? Is it the echo? I feel like that may have just become a behavioral loop.
That, or if it's an older cat, like does it have dementia or something,
Right.
crying out for the owner? I know my cat is very, very attached to me. And when I come home, she's like a little puppy dog. She follows me everywhere. And one of the first things I do is go into the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do, if I shut the door, she's crying on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
So is this a matter of like a door being shut and the person's in the shower and the cat's crying?
I think I read it as though the cat just goes into the shower
Oh,
area
goes into the
to
shower
yell. And like the person's not in the shower. It's like the acoustics of the shower area that the person thinks the cat may enjoy.
Maybe
Or-
it may have found something that's really fun.
Yeah. I also have noticed that cats tend to really like bathtubs and shower areas because they're cool, because the surfaces is very cool. So maybe the cat was initially drawn there and then screamed once and noticed like, oh, this makes a fun sound or what, and then it became this kind of
Right.
behavioral loop that now he or she is just on. Like, okay, today, as you mentioned, they have their patterns when they're outside, they go walk. And so cats do that frequently in the home too, is that they just get on these loops and they're like, well, what I do every day is I go in the shower and scream, and then I go here, and then I, maybe that has happened.
It'd be fun to kind of see it on
It
video,
would, yeah.
really evaluate it. I know that there's a reason behind it. It would be fun to figure that out, but
It
I
would.
don't know if you and I know the answer.
No, it's just a lot of wild speculation at this point, but it is a very interesting question, but hard to answer without a visual component, I think. Another question is, what is good enrichment for when cats can't jump anymore? So I'm assuming cats that are arthritic or have hip dysplasia or other issues.
So if it is a medical issue and if it is arthritis, we have a wonderful, wonderful new way to treat it. So I had my own cat on it. That's the first thing I would recommend.
Silencia.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Let's get this cat out of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a big one on massage. And if there's the availability to have acupuncture or laser therapy, but this sounds to me like a medical issue first.
Right. And I would also add that, because I've had many arthritic cats, that I have had on the recommendation of our amazing vet, Dr. Gina Rendon, put them on, it's like an omega-3 fatty acid supplement called Antinol. And within 2 weeks, the change was crazy. Just on this, natural, it's like a fish oil.
Yeah.
And you can get it in a capsule or as an oil. The oil's pretty stinky, but whatever. But the change was night and day. So we didn't even, for one of the cats, have to go to Silencia because the fatty acid. Yeah, it's great. So you have any suggestions for in the interim?
Certainly. So a lot of things, I always look at things that you could do at home. So you can build a tent. The magic carpet is wonderful. It's this plastic sheeting that cats just like to root in. So I would start out with putting a magic carpet down on the ground, let the cat root in it. It's great because you can poke holes in it. I like to put toys or foraging treats underneath it so that cats then just have to kind of rip through and dig through and get to it. Certainly for this cat, something like scent enrichment, I will take silvervine. I like silvervine, but catnip's okay too. Any scent enrichment, and hide toys around. So like put it behind a chair, behind a door, so that a cat has to smell it.
Right.
And then root it out and play for it. I also have a way of doing food and treats where you just do like 4 or 5 kibbles on a plate and put plates all over the house. Again, on the floor, but in different rooms or so on. My thought is the cat gets hungry, they should go looking for their food. And they'll find a plate, They'll eat the 4 or 5 kibbles. Just like us, when a plate is empty, you kind of feel full and you
Right.
walk away, and cat will go back to sleep or whatever, get up, go back to the plate, see it's empty, and then have to kind of find the next one. So anything to kind of get movement around, as I said before, let them follow you as you're dropping treats. You can also, like so many of the toys that are on the end of a wand, you don't have to get them jumping. You can just get them chasing after
Right.
without getting them jumping.
Yeah.
So that's good. I would also like to get some vertical things going, not making them jump up, but actually being able to walk up. You can do that with low shelves. You can put toys on shelves. Cats love to knock things off, so you can, put things around that let them knock it off. So they don't have to jump.
Right.
But certainly in this situation, if they're not jumping, there's a medical reason.
Yeah. I think also I want to get back to vertical space for cats because that is something we haven't touched on. But I think you could also add in doing some training for the cat for enrichment and intellectual stimulation. So you could do clicker training, or you could do all different kinds of training for intellectual stimulation, which I have found cats of all ages love.
Yep.
Because they tend to be really smart. They tend to really enjoy it. It doesn't have to take more than 5 minutes a day. They usually can't tolerate a lot longer than that anyway. But it's something I found that they really look forward to. And then you can, if you want to teach them to sit or high five or whatever, but you can also, train them to be carrier trained, which I think is really valuable. You can have them learn to be more comfortable at the vet, to have kind of pattern games, which I think are really helpful. All of that kind of stuff, I think, could be really helpful for a cat who can't jump, but to continue to provide some enrichment. And I wanted to talk a little bit, since we just touched on it, about vertical space and how that is important enrichment. Maybe let's talk a little bit about environmental enrichment for cats, since we've talked about so much about toys. Do you want to talk a little bit about environmental enrichment?
Sure. But before I go there, I want to thank you for bringing up that clicker training, because that to me is phenomenal way to strengthen that human-animal bond, to get the cat working on something. They love it.
Yes.
They love that interaction. And like you said, if it's just stationing, if it's just learning to take a pill, possibilities are endless. Yes, I can't stress enough how much I love clicker training, and thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
As far as vertical goes, not every cat likes being high, but a lot of cats do. And for those that do, they absolutely should have special places for them to get up high. And it can be a shelf in a closet. You don't have to litter your whole house with things on the wall, but you can strategically kind of place furniture so that they can jump up on the chair and then jump up on the bookshelf. Every one of the shelves in my house have spaces on every shelf for a cat. So they can jump up here and wander this way and then jump up this way. It's not hard to do.
Right.
Again, even putting like a chair up against a window, like every cat should have ledges around windows that they can look out from.
Yes.
And it's pieces of furniture, or you can buy cat trees, or you can buy high scratch posts, but that's the kind of space that cats are really looking for.
Yeah. I always think, especially about like living in the city, you don't want to be like nailing or like screwing stuff into the walls when you rent. That's so annoying to deal with later. But there's really good stuff now, that suction cups that holds up to like our 20-pound big boys. So you can get like really nice window beds, and we even have some like cat furniture, the stuff that comes in like multiple pieces. Oh, here's a big long scratcher, tube, and then here's a little seat, and here's another little like hidey area, and they're all suction cupped for windows. Right. So it's so great. So then you can arrange them, and if you're like, oh, I don't quite like that arrangement, you just pull them off and do it. So you don't have this fear of like, oh, now I have to find a stud and I have to go through this production, and then if it's not exactly right, I have to patch it. And I think those are so great. And again, as long as you put them up on a clean window and you clean the suction cup, they're going to hold even
Yes.
a big fatty like some of our big
Yes.
dudes. So I really like to recommend those to people as well as easier solutions than messing with a bunch of cat furniture, because I'm also lazy and I don't want to do that.
I agree. I agree. One of my cat's favorite places is I have a 3-shelf, just plastic. It's just the plastic 3-shelf, and it's up against the window, and on
Yeah.
top I put her bed, and she loves laying in that bed and looking out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, is that like giving window space is the most important thing. Like, that's where our cats are at all times, is always in front of a window, if not outside on their catio. So
Yes.
no matter what time of day it is, even if they're asleep in a window, because
Right.
they want to know what's going on.
What some people may not realize is that cats feel safer when they're up higher.
Yes.
Because they are preyed upon. And so, being able to be up high and surveying everything below gives them that control and that safety. And, they'll fall asleep on those window seats
Right.
because they feel safe up there.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody else wanted to know, what do you think about the speech/talking buttons, the AIC, all of that stuff? What do you think?
I don't, because I haven't personally tried it yet, but I find it fascinating that we're moving in these directions. It just, we want to communicate with our pets, and we want to know what they're thinking. And it's just bringing that strength that we feel with these creatures so much closer and stronger.
Yeah.
That I love that. I don't know how to evaluate it. I haven't seen enough of it. It's, fairly a new concept. But if there's a chance that it can help us communicate with them, then all the better. As a veterinarian, the things that my silly brain thinks about is, do animals get headaches?
I always wonder that. And they can't take an Advil.
Can't tell us.
Yeah.
They can't say, I have a migraine or I have a headache, leave me alone. And of course they must. Like, they have bodies like we do. They feel just like we do. And yet to think that they can never communicate that, and that we may never know it. So if there's things that are popping up with technology and so on that can bring us a little bit closer to figuring those things out, then hey, yeah.
Yeah. I think, his full disclosure, I did this guy back here, Steve, who's my best friend in the whole world, who passed last year, but I started teaching him to use those speech buttons because I had just seen them during COVID when my lab was closed, and I was like, oh, let's see if this works. I don't know what it is. And he learned in 4 days, but he was like a sort of genius cat, and he was always an amazing communicator before, right?
Wow.
So he just was like, I could see him put it together, and he was just like, oh, okay, great. And it's associative concept training. It's not language or speech acquisition. But he very quickly was like, oh, I just associate this button with this. And I only gave him nouns, essentially. He had like outside, eat, brush, like things that were very concrete things. But it really made him even happier, because now he could boss us even more, which he was already very, very bossy, but he could really even clearer get across what it was he wanted. And it made our lives sometimes more difficult, because we were like, oh my gosh, stop. Like, you can't have everything, so. And then he did grasp the concepts of yes and no, which I did think were interesting. And I have yet to see another cat in our group kind of grasp that. But again, he was like a very special guy. But it did help in terms of, I think, giving him a feeling of a sense of control and choice. So he could say like, hey, I want to eat, or hey, I want to go outside, because that was when we lived in the city and I had to open the door to let him out into our yard. And so it really helped him feel more in control. And I think that was super helpful, even though it was annoying to us when he wanted to go outside at 2 a.m. and we'd say no, and he would hit outside 50 times. But I do think
fabulous.
I think they're really helpful in that regard. Or if he could say, "Hey, I want to play," or "Hey, I would like you to go." He'd hit birds because he'd want me to go put bird seed in the feeder if it was empty, and he wants to watch the birds. Those kinds of things were like really, really helpful because I wasn't paying attention all the time to the seed level or whatever's going on. I'm very dubious of people whose animals have buttons to represent pain or issues, because how do you teach that, and how do you know that it's a one-to-one concept, and how would you even teach that ethically?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know.
I know.
But I would love for that to be able to be something we could figure out in an ethical way at some point. I just don't, my dumb brain doesn't know how we would be able to do that.
Yeah, I at this point don't either, but have full confidence that we'll get there.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about the face recognition. Like, we're learning so much at a, very good pace here. We're making advances regularly to where I see that in the future. I think that it's unlimited as to how far we can go with communication with our pets.
I hope so.
I mean, it's already done telepathically. So, they speak to me.
Yeah.
I know they do. So it's
Well, here's hoping. Do you have, so that was all the listener questions. Do you have any last thoughts that you would like to share with people? Anything that's next, anything that's in development you would want to talk about? Do you want to just shout out your website? Anything you'd like to share?
Oh, well, my website is DeziRoo.com, and that's DeziRoo.com. I really want people to understand the depth and responsibility that they have for an indoor cat. And that is my mission, is to just have everybody have that little switch go off that says, oh my gosh, my cat's in four walls. My cat really deserves a lot more than these four walls and just food and shelter and love. And that we start enriching them a whole lot more. I think that I would, in my lifetime, love to see the ending of declawing as a practice. And so it's my deepest passion that we stop mutilating cats for the sake of our furniture. And so I put that out there. I will even go a step further to say that because I'm a veterinarian, if you're taking your cat to a veterinarian who does declaw cats, you should think twice about that. I just don't believe those two are compatible.
I agree.
So while I would love for you to come to my website and buy toys, I think you should buy every toy on the market out there, not just mine, but everybody's. Your cat should constantly be having new things in their life. Open the windows, grow grass, find ways that you can let them safely enjoy outdoors. Again, people buy houses, they move into a house with dogs and they fence their yard in. I believe every cat owner should be thinking about cat-proofing their yard and fencing it in. It's not just for dogs. We also need to give our cats a whole lot more choices in the home. Don't just, make up everything for your cat. Like I said, where you feed them, what you feed them out of, how often you feed them. Give them some choices. Oh, I could go on, and so could you. Buy my book. It's on Amazon. It's called Indoor Cat, How to Enrich Their Lives and Expand Their World. And I do believe that there's something in there for every cat owner. You will gain so many tips and tricks by reading that. I also blog a couple times a month. You can check that out. But those would be my parting words.
Right.
Do more, bring the outdoors in, make every day different, play with wand toys. I believe in a different prey every day. And you'll be rewarded. Everybody listening to your show loves their cat. Everybody listening to your show is already an awesome pet parent, period. So we're probably preaching to the choir.
Yes.
But if that is the case, spread the word. Let your friends and family and everybody else know how important it is.
Absolutely. Those were great parting words. Love it. So awesome. I thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Dr. Bahr, for being on the show. This was so informative and so interesting, and I think it's going to be super helpful for all of our listeners, most of whom I think have indoor cats. So thank you so much for being on the show and for giving us all of your wisdom.
And thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Of course. Thanks for listening. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, please go ahead and give us a rating and or a review. We'd super appreciate it. You can find our social medias, Instagram and TikTok at Hiss and Tell Podcast. For cat behavior consultations, go to catitude-adjustment.com. Music provided by Cat Beats.